Mm-hmm.
and especially ones at premium positions like defensive tackle and edge, where a lot of injuries have happened across the league, where a lot of teams are desperate for pass rush help because they know when they get in the playoffs, you need that defense. You need that defense to get you over the hump in some of these games to stop a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, to slow down the Detroit Lions. Like, you got to have those defenders. But again, if you're the Tennessee Titans, you just don't give them up for peanuts because you're kind of in a lost season. You have to get something in return.
Well, these guys also have value for how you're building your team moving forward next season. So if you know they're in the last year of their contract, then you say, okay, well, let's move forward now since we know this season is pretty much done. So I don't really see a lot of players that they could have drafted besides some of the guys we've already talked about. Either they're young players or they're foundational pieces for the organization. So at least on the defensive side, offensive line is real young. I mean, so I really didn't see anywhere outside of the guys we discussed. I mean, do you think of anybody else that potentially could have been traded that we haven't actually really discussed?
I think teams probably called on Amani Hooker.
Well, no, I said outside of the
outside of the defense, Tyler Boyd.
Oh, okay.
I think that at some point probably teams did call on Tyler Boyd. It doesn't mean, again, I mean, maybe that's a guy you trade for a 6th or 7th because he's not really doing too much. But again, that's a more vocal leadership guy. So maybe that is okay with you to turn down a 6th or 7th. But he hasn't been very involved in the passing offense in all this kind of stuff. He's on the field. He's just not involved.
Well, I think it told us in the offseason when we didn't have a lot of traction there, and then they signed him pretty much, in my mind, just as a solid player for I think it was 4.5 or something, whatever the number was. For today's NFL, that was really low for a guy with, I think he averaged 700, 800 yards the last couple of years, which is a solid performance. He's getting up there in age, and he wasn't a speed demon. He was more of a, find the right spots, route runner type guy. So I think it's a guy could have been replaced. If somebody might have made a call there, I think, depending, if it was a 6th round, I might have considered it, not because we want to get rid of him. I bet Callahan want him there, but because, you know what? Let's start seeing what we got in some of these other guys here. And whether that's Jackson, Mason Kinsey, whatever, do we increase NWI's role on the inside, put somebody on the outside? Let's see what Oliver has. Is he inside, outside guy? So I might have potentially, if somebody offered a 6th round, I definitely would have been considering Tyler Boyd. I didn't think about him, but because I think he's a player that's just okay player, nothing that we would lose sleep over in this offense.
Chika Okonkwo could have gotten some looks from teams on offense that are looking for an athletic pass catcher. And I understand he's had his ups and downs here.
Right.
But, I mean, again, you got that little bit of ego from these coaches and GMs that, like, I can fix him. I can get the most out of him. And that's a guy that I feel like could be a 6th or 7th round pick. And listen, rookie contract, all those, situations involved.
What round did he go? Do you remember?
He was
I want to say 5th, but I could be
5th.
wrong.
He was 5th.
Okay.
And then I look at a guy like, hey, a lot of tackles went down. There may be another person that believes in NPF. Like, I mean, like there's a couple of these guys that just got drafted that maybe are entering.
Or they may say he's a guard.
They may say he's a guard.
He did play guard too as well at Ohio State.
So I look at it and I go, they're not sexy. Maybe you're getting a 2026. Draft pick, but those are guys that do provide limited value for other teams, I would say. Maybe they get over there and they take off. That sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, when I see that Jonathan Mingo goes for a 4th round pick who has done nothing, and the Cowboys, who just had their quarterback go to IR, then trade for a wide receiver that has done nothing, you're like, Jerry's officially lost it, right? I mean, this whole season, he's talking about, well, Derrick Henry wouldn't have done very well here even if we had signed him and pursued him and all this stuff. And he didn't really do anything this offseason. And then he gets mad at the radio station for questioning him, on all these moves. And they shouldn't question him. Like, I think Jerry's officially approaching that territory where he's lost it.
No.
Right? I mean, he's getting pretty close. I mean, I've always thought he's a crazy Uncle Jerry, I guess is the nickname for him, but he may he may literally need to be thinking about retirement home.
Well, I saw the Cooper Rush kid, right? What happened to Trey? He's still on the team, right?
Yeah, Cooper Rush or Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Oh, Trey Lance, I believe, but which he traded for a fourth. So, like, I don't know. Like, this guy,
he might have thought he won at the time because Trey Lance was a top 5 pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, they put him on IR. It's just crazy.
Oh man.
So we'll talk more about the trade deadline, but we're also going to get to the next segment, talking about the decisions that Brian Callahan has made at the goal line, has made on fourth downs, and kind of talk him through this idea that maybe he's overthinking it. So we're going to talk about that next. I'm Zach Lyons. He's Blaine Bishop. This is Cover 2.
Where's
Blaine
Rand?
On 104.5 The Zone. Maybe. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to get on the conversation, of course. You also have the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. Blaine, we have entered the pro analytics era for the Tennessee Titans, something that I've called for, pulled for, been a fan of for quite some time, and we have a forward-thinking organization. Now, sometimes with analytics, sometimes with being a nerd, like we have a football nerd as our head coach, and that's fine. I'm a football nerd, so that I can say that about someone else. But sometimes you get into this thing of there's too much data. Maybe there's too much information, and that leads to maybe possibly overthinking certain things in certain situations. And what a tweet last night after Kansas City did some trickery, and then the Baker and the Broncos did some trickery, and they both failed. This tweet really hit home because there was a couple of instances where I feel like the Tennessee Titans over the years, and every team is a victim of doing this, gets to a point, creates some momentum, then boom, here comes an end around to Malik Willis that ends up fumble for whatever reason. Here's an end around to Jaquan Jackson that lost you 5 yards. Here's a direct snap that ended in a turnover. Like stuff that you're just like, what are you doing? And Aaron Nagler, who covers the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron on Twitter said, I swear, every really good NFL play caller has the odd compulsion to call some absurdly complicated play that fools absolutely no one and serves nothing except to potentially kill a promising drive nearly every single week. And the Tennessee Titans, for under Todd Downing, were big, perpetrators of this tweet. Like this tweet really hit home for me. And the Tennessee Titans, I think in some instances, even with Brian Callahan, have had one weird play call here, one weird play call there when it comes to the drive, and then the drive loses, false start, or there's a momentum, loses a little bit of momentum. And this team, since Arthur Smith has left, has had troubles keeping the momentum alive after a play like that. Obviously, they won a game, overcoming, resilient, relentless. But I wanted to talk about a few plays here in this game in particular. And I want to start with let's start with the goal line plays, because obviously this is coming after a week where they went pass, and pass instead of running against Detroit. And this time they at least went run, pass before throwing that interception at Chig. But it's an off-target throw, and it was a throw that's the primary read is to Chig, obviously, because it goes snap, set, throw. And we know that a couple plays ago that Tony Pollard, he got 4 yards on his run. Then an incomplete pass, then it goes interception. And I know that they feel like they got the look that they wanted. They got the player open as much as they thought they would. But Mason threw it high. But that's kind of where I'm at, is like, that's a little bit of overthinking. Because yes, the pass was high. Yes, the pass hit Chig in the hand. So, but is a play designed to Chig, who's had issues making contested catches, even the right call to begin with, regardless of the play design and the primary read on the play may be the issue. But this seems like a little bit of overthinking, because we heard last week they said, well, they were in their base defense for the Detroit Lions. So obviously they got the look that they wanted, but the Patriots played it up to a T, because you're right there on the 2-yard line, and that's not a lot of space to cover, right? I mean, like, that benefits the defense. Really seems like to me you should have given it to Tony Pollard. But I remember Nick Holtz said, hey, we know that we went all those pass plays in Detroit. We would do it again if we had another chance. And here you go.
Well, it's always tough as a play caller, and we could question every single call. You know what? I really don't have an issue with the actual play design. I thought it was well designed. I thought, first and foremost, it was, to your point, it was a high throw, so you got to throw it low and inside. But my main issue with this play has nothing to do with the design it has everything to do with why are we running this play with Chig? And nothing against Chig, is that I want to get it to my playmaker. So to me, there's 3 options when I get down there this close. I'm gonna give it to Pollard in some form or fashion, whether I'm throwing to him or handing it to him. I'm setting up where I didn't really run that play. Because that's kind of his style. He's not a jump ball guy. He's more of I'm going to beat you with my quickness and speed. That would have been a well-designed low, and then he could have just dove across. Or I'm hitting who? Dare I say, NWI. Because guess what? He's a touchdown magnet. So eventually that's on film. If people are going to start paying attention to him at some point. Maybe never, because they just don't give him that kind of respect. But he has to be third on this list if I'm in the red zone. Sorry, that's how it's going. Guess what? Did you hear me say Chig? Did you hear me say Wiley? Did you hear me say anybody besides the 3 people I said? Guess what? Because these are the guys who are making the plays for you. Go to the well until they stop them.
Well, I also thought it was interesting on this same play that the corner that was on Ridley left Ridley very early, and there's no one covering Ridley. Is there
Oh, maybe he saw something in design.
Well, he may have saw something in design, but I also wonder if Rudolph should not. And I know it's a quick bam play, so maybe there is no second read or there is no reading of the defensive back. I'm asking you, do you think there's an option where he should have read that defensive back a little bit better?
Yeah, but that guy,
is that nitpicking?
I don't know if it's nitpicking. I just think on that play design, I don't even know if you're really looking at the DB. He kind of was a, silo, like he was doing his own thing because he thought he saw the play. He just took off. That happened sometime and didn't stay with his guy. If he would have fake pumped and they showed on film that he was reacting like that and then just threw it to Ridley, then it would have been like, what are you doing, bro? I mean, like, why did you do that? I mean, so sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you're just smart.
Smart.
Yeah, so I don't know which one is that. So, that's why film – you could always go back, and that's why I get a little edgy on especially offense, because you go, well, dang, why did he throw to him? That guy over there was wide open.
And that was a question I had like real time. So I wondered about the design. Like,
I like the design. Yeah. I think that's a tough play to play as a defensive back down there. You can't throw it high. Like, that's like, I mean.
And he didn't have pressure. He went, planted his feet, had the time.
Yeah, so I don't know if someone's hand got up or what happened, and it got away from him because it was such a quick pass. He's like,
it was quick.
Yeah, so sometimes it gets away from you, but he knows he's got to throw that. I mean, hey man, I'm on the other side of that. I'm the guy hitting the guy, so I would try to knock him out, but. I think Chig got little alligator arms. It hit his hands, so when it hits your hands as a receiver, you're supposed to still catch it. But I get what happened here because he started peeking. When you start peeking, you ain't never going to work out well. Guess what? Here's the whole thing, and I talked to receivers about this. I asked them, okay, when are you worried about a big hit? What are you thinking? They say, if I catch it, the hit doesn't hurt as bad. So catch the freaking ball.
That's what Dyson said.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he said that too. He said that too. So
nobody knows I play wide receiver myself when you're in high school, and it felt a lot better if I caught it when I got smacked than if I didn't. Like, oh my God, that killed me. So I'm sure it's the same now. So so there's 2 parts of the party here, but ultimately. Tells your hands you got to catch it, but he can't be throwing it high. Not in the red zone on a quick bang play where you're very vulnerable.
I want to get to the 4th down decision, take the field goal before to tie it up 10-10, and also the Hail Mary play. But first, Diana Rossini has got us a couple of reports, not really breaking news, but a couple of reports here. There you are.
Oh, yeah.
The Titans, the first tweet is, the Titans have received calls on a trio of defenders. And I assume that she means today, obviously. Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, Sebastian Joseph Day. This is the second tweet. I had one team say today we gave Tennessee a call just to check on Simmons, but we knew the answer before we even picked up the phone, and it was no. So, obviously, Simmons is not going anywhere unless you're going to provide multiple firsts. I don't think Simmons is leaving Tennessee, which I think we all kind of knew anyway.
Yeah, but I would have loved to hear what they offered. I guess we'll never know that.
No.
But nobody's untouchable at this point in time. We're not a very good team. If I could have got a lot of value, let's say if they gave me, I don't even know if he's worth a second right now, a second and a fourth, I would definitely thought of it, really considered it. Now, if they would have gave up a third, probably not. I'm like, he is a piece, but you have to look at also where has Big Jeff been the last 3 years? And when I say that, I'm saying his health. Mm-hmm. And then you got to try to play this out. Like, he's missing some games and, he's not been able to play or he's playing injured. And that started at the beginning of his career when he had ACL. So he didn't play until the sixth game. And I thought they should have even slow played a little bit more, but he's kind of a freak of nature type athlete. For the defensive tackle position. So, yeah, all bets are off. To me, anybody of that value, you want to see what he's worth. If they can give you a lump sum and you're a rebuilding team, I think sometimes you got to part with great players, even when they're young in their prime. And guess what? You got Sweat, and then guess what? You can, manage through players like Sebastian Day and any other players of that ilk that are solid players, but nowhere near the level of Big Jeff. Good that he's here though, because he's a great player, so he's very talented. So see if he can stay healthy. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'm sure at the end of the season we'll talk about how hard it is to play with the UCL injury when you're a defensive lineman. Everything about his game is about bull rush and set up with his bull rush and locking out and keeping his arms straight. So a UCL injury is very, very hard to play with. I'm just astonished that he's actually playing with it. And to my understanding, that's an honor to him that people are still trying to offer for him when he has to have that type of surgery, I think, in the off season. So that tells you how good he actually is. So, that's pretty impressive.
Also, let's not forget that this is the same, I know different regime, but same franchise that also said that they had no intention of trading A.J. Brown and then traded him on draft night.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all about the bounty.
Yeah, everyone's got a price.
I'm not saying that they're not going to trade him, but someone's going to have to come with the bounty with picks. Yeah. That's pretty like you said. I agree with you, Blaine. Outside of the rookies and maybe they got people drafted last year, nobody's untouchable on this team, except for the people that just got signed obviously right, too. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to give up I think this team thinks that you're going to have to give up 2 firsts to even start the Jeffrey Simmons conversation. Now, whether they're in the right on that is a totally different discussion, but they're just not giving up for anything. So I want to get to the 4th down play call in the third quarter where they chose to go 10-10, if I'm not mistaken, and take the field goal with New England Patriots. So it was 4th and 3. They were down 3 at the time, and it was in the third quarter. And Seth Walder, who does the ESPN analytics that tell you whether they recommend whether a team should go for it or not, put up a tweet that said, "Big 4th down error by Brian Callahan." If they went with the field goal, it increased the win percentage was 52.1%. And if they go with if they go for it, they have a chance to win for 56.4%.
So it went up 4%?
So it went up 4% according to their metric, but it doesn't ever state really what's the likelihood of them doing it against the Patriots. And we know this Tennessee Titans team pays attention to that, right? Because we've heard him explain, well, we know that this team is really good at 4th and 3s, or this team is really good. We know we can go for it on 4th and 2. They do all their research, and their recommendation for this was this week, I believe, was 4th and 2. They got the green light to go for it.
That's what he said, too.
Yeah. So Mike Herndon quote tweeted this and put, "Analytics represents far more than just 4th down decisions, but for a team that has paid so much lip service to embracing analytics this offseason, Callahan has been massively disappointing with these types of calls." And I would disagree, because the ESPN model is not as intricate and advanced as what they have up in the booth. It's not as intricate and advanced as what the team is seeing on the field. That model right there that I just read to you about Seth Walder, that doesn't take into account that they have a backup right guard and the right tackle situation. That doesn't take into account Mason Rudolph is their backup quarterback. It doesn't take into account those things. So to me, again, this is more about football feel than it is about analytics and data that can't predict. ESPN's model does not predict that. In fact, Ben Baldwin's model, it shoots out a tweet whether there's a strong recommendation, a very strong recommendation, or whatever. So any positive recommendation that you should go for it, that bot that he has built automatically puts it out. Wasn't ever there. You know why? Because that model didn't predict strongly that you should go for it. I have no issue with taking the field goal. And here's why. If they fail to get that, we don't know how we've seen this team not be able to overcome that. We don't know if this team can overcome failing on that fourth down right now at this point in the game. So I'm all for going for the field goal and taking the tie.
Yeah, at the time in the moment, I had no doubt that I would have kicked the field goal. Here's the reason why. To me, this is the feel for the game, and I thought it was the right decision, is because first and foremost, you need positive energy still within your team because you want to make sure you stay in a positive sense. We don't know how it would happen if they went for it on fourth and did not get it. So that's number one. So I'm thinking about that. Flow of the game. The flow of the game, it wasn't a defensive effort type game. It was going to be low scoring. Take points when you can. It's a rule by coaches, regardless of what analytics or any other service says. The flow of the game, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Take the points, don't take the risk, because guess what? I may regret at the end if we lose by 2 points or whatever it may have been. So I would say the flow of the game told you, based off the score, how the game was going and being a low-scoring game. So that, that I get it. Guess what? The coaches who's calling the plays, in this case, Callahan, the head coach, they're always going to observe and, be critical of themselves after watching the tape, say, ooh, should we have gone for it? What play would I have run, in hindsight? They're doing that about every single critical call in a game on both sides of the ball. And I think if he goes back, he'll still say, I'm glad we did what we did. And I had no issue with that there. Because what yard line were they on?
I lost it, so I have to go back and look for it.
Yeah, so that might have been a critical play. Could change the whole momentum of the game. They could have went down and then New England and got a field goal out of it themselves after a couple first downs. So you just never know. I'm taking the points in a low-scoring game.
And
always.
Also, Mike acting,
boom, go.
Yeah,
and also don't think about it.
Mike acting like they're not using analytics correctly when they go into a game. After discussing with two people they have involved in strategy on the analytics side, and they say, okay, here's the data that shows us when's the play to go for it, when not to go for it. Here's the situations. They're using analytics. They're just not using it how you want to, Mike. And I'll be taking him to task on this on Football and Other F Words live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. here on 104.5 The Zone.
I will say this, though. If it was 4th and 2, I still would have kicked the field goal.
I am probably with you, to be honest. But, I mean, obviously, their model probably would have gone for it.
I think that's when they say, okay, this is an opportunity. Whether we take it or not is up to us. I think that's what they're really saying when they say, our model told us on 4th and 2 when he's explaining it. That doesn't mean he was still going to go for it. He's just saying that's what it told us. That doesn't mean that's what I'm doing because I have to watch the flow of the game. So I don't know if he would have gone for it or not. He might have gone for it, but I still wouldn't have gone for it based off the score of the game. You do not, those pressures. Just imagine, we wouldn't have won in overtime.
Right.
Just think about that.
Well, look at it this way, and I agree also. We're also going to talk about Gerard Mayo's 4th down decision at the end of the game. The extra point decision, because I think he did the right thing there too. But we're also going to talk about the Hail Mary when we come back. But right before we go to break, the Packers are trading edge rusher Preston Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers per sources. So Preston Smith will be on the opposite side with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt.
For what?
We don't know yet. I was just about to finish that. So we don't know what it's for yet. That when compensation's announced, we'll get into that. But other than that, we'll keep you updated as the trade deadline approaches its end. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Harold! Hey guys, this is Blaine for Edge Peptide Therapy. And listen, I've been hearing about peptides and peptide therapy now for a few months and was curious. So I finally went to Edge Peptide Therapy to find out more. And they did a full blood panel that showed where my body had some small deficiencies. Then they came up with a tailor-made plan to address those areas with peptides. And since I started my peptide therapy, I've noticed my energy level has increased as well as my focus. And this month, Edge is offering a special on their recovery peptides. And recovery peptides are great for healing post-injury or surgery. You recover quicker from your workouts, even if you still have some joint pain and arthritis in your back, and elbow, and pain and overall inflammation from old and new sports injuries. Recovery peptides help with all of this. So if you're looking for an alternative to surgery, consider talking to Edge first. And this month, Edge is offering $150 off your first peptide package for new clients. So why not get started now? Go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. If you want to talk Tennessee Titans, trade deadline, all that jazz. And we're going to continue our discussion about some of the decisions that were made on the Tennessee Titans versus Patriots game. And I want to talk about let's start with the Gerard Mayo going for the extra points to tie, send it into overtime. And I was having this discussion with actually Jackson, and I said, I don't know. I think I may go for it, or maybe they should go for it, go for the 2-point conversion. And Jackson brought up this is before there was an 11-second play, but Jackson brought up a good point, the producer for the Buck Rising show, and he said, it's a rookie quarterback. Is that really the situation you're ready for a rookie quarterback to handle after probably an emotional long drive as well built on top of it? And then we saw him run around for 11 and a half seconds to get the touchdown. And I'm kind of like, okay, now I understand. Let's go for the field goal. So I think in that instance with a rookie quarterback who just spent time, I don't agree with that before the 11 and a half seconds. Like, I think after that kind of an emotional physical tolling, 11 and a half seconds running around, I don't know if I go for it because that play almost ended in disaster anyway. And I don't think that with the run game, how the run game was working, how the screen game was working against the Tennessee Titans, I don't know if that was really a feasible outlet for them as well. So I understood why he went for the field goal to tie and take it into overtime.
This would have been a tough one for me.
Yeah.
And it's only because of the situation that the New England Patriots are in, which the Titans are too. And that is, what the freak do we have to freaking lose here? We haven't won a game. I'm on the road. They are on the road. So I think I probably would have gone for it. I think I would have.
Because kind of like the what the hell attitude.
Right, yeah, like, okay, we just had a spectacular play by our young quarterback, which I told you this guy can run around. He's a great athlete. This guy played like basketball. This guy's good. I watched him in North Carolina. Him and Downs was just destroying people at receiver. So I really thought he was a really good player, and he showed that in there. And so I would have tried to I would have went for it. I would have.
Yeah. I don't think that
I would have tried to end it there.
Yeah.
Because I would have felt like the Titans couldn't respond to it. They wouldn't have the
I guess just as much as maybe that may have been exhausting for you, probably mentally and emotionally, the Tennessee Titans defense wasn't in the right place after that.
Even though it was kind of somewhat of a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I wonder what he thought when he threw it. Like, I have no choice but to throw it. Hopefully he whips back out.
Yeah.
Because when he threw the ball, the guy was covered. I mean,
he started getting open.
Yeah.
I mean, So
that was really
you know those dots they put out for Next Gen Stats where they show all the players moving around. Uh-huh. It looked like a child scribbled on on your wall, an infant scribbled on your wall. All those receivers and tight ends were just like moving around in circles.
I was exhausted. You said it was 11 seconds?
It was the second longest play that it resulted in, or time-wise, second longest play of the Next Gen Stats era, so that's since 2016, that was a touchdown pass. The prior week was Jaden Daniels, which is number one. Mm-hmm. But like, he was around for 11.56, 11.65, something like that, seconds, just running around out there.
Yeah. And the Titans rushed 4 guys. In the Washington game, they only rushed 3 guys.
And a couple guys left to come get him.
And they would come. They would get him.
Yeah, because I think everybody was kind of like,
all right, this is enough.
Yeah, it's time to go. And Arden Key almost, not quite, almost was one of the guys to get the sack. But always,
Mr. Almost.
He's an almost edge rusher.
Yeah, he's an almost, but not full-time starting edge rusher.
Real quick, I want to hear from Brian Callahan talking about the Hail Mary play that ended the first half. That Mason Rudolph threw out of bounds. So we're going to hear, this is Brian Callahan talking about that play yesterday in his press conference.
I think there were 3 seconds left, and we could have thrown a Hail Mary, run about the 50. And at the half, I just wasn't in a place where I was like, I just want to throw the ball down at the end zone. I've seen those go really badly at the half. At the end of the game is a different story, but at the half, just didn't want to put the ball in the air and risk the ball getting intercepted and run back. I mean, you're in a really vulnerable spot if that happens. And then they probably were going to pressure the Hail Mary anyway, which is not ideal as well. So ultimately treated that as what we call a foul ball situation on that 4th down with 3 seconds left. We just throw it as high and far out of bounds as you can, and the half's over, you know. And it looks bad and everybody boos and all that, but that was intentional. I wanted him to do that. You throw it as high and far out of bounds, so the clock runs out, and we take to the half. Like, the half was over at that point, and a Hail Mary wouldn't have been much better. So that's why, and that's how it all sort of happened. It wasn't the holding was really what killed it. And then the injury timeout that took away the timeout was another thing. It didn't look good, but there was reason behind some of that.
So what'd you think about that? Because
take me through the whole scenario. It's right before half. I'm trying to recall.
So they got they had the holding call, then they had the injury on, I believe, Lloyd Cushenberry that ended up having taken out their timeout.
Oh, right, right.
And then they threw a deep pass to Nick Westbrook-Akine that ended up going out of bounds. He did talk about that he thought that they were going to rush. They did. They sent 5, so they did rush. So their data and their analytics and their film watch said probably in this situation they're going to rush.
They also did a delay a game, I'm pretty sure, because Brian Callahan also said before in the a few seconds before this clip started that they were trying to get the play call in. It cut off at the 15-second mark, and Mason didn't know what the play was, so he had half the play, and I think that was actually the NWI pass. Where he just chucked it out of bounds. He only had half that. Mason only had half that play. So
you're right. There was a holding play and a delay of game play because they couldn't get, for whatever reason, at that time, that was the injury play, right? The play that led to the injury, loss of the timeout.
Yeah.
It was because something happened. He couldn't finish the play into Mason Rudolph before the helmet cut off. And that ended up with the delay of game. And that was all while the injury was happening. But essentially, he said they're going to rush 5, or they're going to rush. We're not going to have time to really get it down there, and that result could likely end in disaster more often than it will end in a touchdown. Now, if it was the second half, the end of the game, obviously different choices would be made. But what do you think of him? Because we're talking about overthinking. Do you think that was the right thought process?
Man. Maybe I'll tell you on the way back.
Okay. When we come back from the break, I'm going to let you stew on it during the commercial break. When we come back from the break, we'll get your answer on that. And we'll talk more about the Tennessee Titans. And, of course, we got Coach Mack coming up at 2:20, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, folks, you know I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they are the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across the state of Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. And they offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy, and nutrition. Personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. Bananas. So please check out your services today at TOA.com. Yes, that's right, TOA.com.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. If you want to talk Tennessee Titans or get some questions in that you want us to ask Coach Mack, and we'll maybe fit those in. 615-737-1045, because coming up next, Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford in the next segment. But Blaine, we were talking about the Hail Mary call. They had a couple penalties work against them. They had an injury work against them. They knew that the Patriots were going to pass rush because that's what the team usually does. They had 3 seconds left on the clock. They decided that it would be safer because it's just halftime, just to have Mason Rudolph throw it deep as far as he can, up in the air as far as he can, and out of bounds to kill the clock. So what did you think of that?
Well, first of all, I would say that I was baffled that after a timeout from an injury, they didn't get the call out there in time, and the headset turned off there in the quarterback's helmet. He didn't know the play. But if it did, if I was going to run a play with all the things that he said, so I have to believe everything he said is 5-man rush, so they're going to get after it. You don't have if it's an interception, you don't. So he's right on point there because you got offensive linemen out there trying to chase some skilled guy. That's not going to happen. So you only have a couple guys on the field. Quarterback's not going to get them. The running back and maybe one of the receivers may be the guy making a tackle, maybe a tight end. So you don't have a lot of guys out there. So to me, he's already thinking that a bad thing could happen. I don't know if I would be thinking that way, but what I would have done for sure, if I am thinking that way based off of he knows his personnel better than anybody, is I may have thrown a 10-yard pass and say, okay, now can my guy, who it would have been Ridley or Pollard, and say, can we make a couple people miss? And then we get in the zone. See, so I can still try to say I'm making a play, but it's a safe play that can turn into something big. So I would have thrown the ball to one of my playmakers. It could have been anybody, but I would have probably tried to pick Pollard or Ridley, who's fast. And try to see if they can make a play. I wouldn't have threw that ball out of bounds.
I don't think that would have crossed my mind. That in fact, when I've writing down the rundown for the show and everything, that option never really crossed my head.
Because I've been a defensive guy. I think people think, you only know defense, but you also understand how they try to plan of attack.
Right.
So if it's me, we're always like, play deep. All the coaches, get back. Well, guess what? Throw that 12-yard dig and then let that guy catch it on the run.
Yeah.
And see what happens. Now go chase him now where you're just kind of standing flat-footed. So I would have run a play. I definitely a safer play, not the Hail Mary and all those things that could possibly happen. I still didn't like that could possibly, possibly it could have tipped to you and you could have scored too. So so let's say you think that, and I'm calling plays. I don't want that to happen. I don't want the head coach coming down on me. I'm the offensive coordinator trying to throw a Hail Mary. So I'm gonna call that play. Yeah, and it's going to work. And then we're going to see if he can make one or two guys miss and you score. Then all of a sudden go, ooh. And also, guess what? It doesn't play into it, but the fans now like, oh, he just missed from scoring. Oh, man. So now you got, fans all happy-go-lucky going into the end zone. Naturally, you're not thinking about that. But from a fan's perspective, they're saying, hey, man, they're still trying to get after and score a touchdown before half.
Yeah, I think I'm going to side with you. I'm going to side with you on that, dude. Give it to Calvin Ridley. Let him use his speed, his ability to, make people miss. Tony Pollard, who can get some yards after contact. I'm kind of with you. I would have rolled that way. Something you brought up earlier that maybe the fans didn't really pick up on, or the listeners didn't really pick up on. You were at the end of the first segment, you were talking about Rand Carthon. The trade deadline ends at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time for today's, for the NFL today. And we have talked a couple of times, and almost everybody has had this discussion about whether or not Rand Carthon should/will talk. And our kind of like common ground was that after the trade deadline is over, he probably should.
Yeah.
Now, he has since, we've done that, obviously talked to Nick Suss of the Tennessean, held a little Q&A with him in a locker room after the Detroit loss. But the trade deadline passes in about less than an hour. Now, we don't expect that he will talk today, obviously. Right. But sometime soon, sometime this week, media availability is available to him on Wednesday, Thursday, and there's some chances on Friday as well. Will he speak to the media, Blaine? Because we both agree he should.
Yeah, he should now.
But now, do you think he will?
Well, I can give you two different answers. If it was me and I'm the GM, I'm actually speaking on Friday. That's a half a day. Players out of the facility and they're gone, and then we can sit down and have some Q&A with question and answers, possibilities, and not give them too much, but give them something. I just think that's kind of his responsibility, even though it's not required. I just think, and then you have to prep, and so you have time to get your thoughts together. So you got 3 days. And Friday, reason why I say Friday if I'm the GM, because guess what? That leads into Saturday and people forget. And then Monday,
college football.
Yeah, no doubt. See, so there's a plan and a method to the madness, but I think he should. I don't. Do I think he will? No.
Yeah, I don't think he will. Now, I want to be proven wrong.
I do too.
Let me say this.
I
hope he does, and he should, because he said that he would be more available to the media. That's one of the things that he learned from his first year as GM was he needed to be available to the media. This would be the time you traded away DeAndre Hopkins. You traded away Ernest Jones. You didn't trade away other pieces that you could have. It is time to talk to the media, talk about kind of like this is a halfway point of the season too, right? It's like a checkpoint, midpoint of the season. And you need to talk about your acquisitions, your draft class. You need to be able to answer these tough questions as a GM. Now, listen, does every GM that makes a trade talk to the media in the middle of the season? No. But he promised that he would be more available. So that's just kind of where...
He's just going to say not this time.
Yeah, maybe.
But the reason why I think he won't is because they're already getting messaging out there from national media. And I'm using that example. I could be going too far with this. You tell me. Is Diana Rossini said that they had offers or, people inquired about. Well, that's the same thing he would talk about.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming someone over there with clout gave her that information. Oh, maybe it was Rand. So, see, that's already given us a little glimpse of maybe he probably won't talk. I think he should absolutely talk after a big time here of trades and not trades, and then this is the end. I think the GM is supposed to be the closer on that, as well as the head coach sitting there. But naturally, we all know Rand and Brinker are the guys running the ship here.
Yeah. And listen, it needs to be Rand. It doesn't need to be Chad Brinker. In my mind, I mean, Rand Carthon. If Rand Carthon runs the roster, makes the roster decisions, he needs the answer for those decisions. If you send out Chad Brinker for something like this,
no, I said both.
Yeah, well, I would just rather have just Rand Carthon up there because that sends a clear message of that there is no convolution of the power structure. It's not muddy. It's very clear. Rand Carthon is the GM. These are roster decisions. These were his choices and all that kind of stuff. That to me just sends a much clearer message and keeps it less murky because it's already murky anyway. I mean, public perception has the waters muddy in that situation. And so to me, I think it just needs to be Rand Carthon, one clear voice, one guy answering the questions, and the guy that promised that he would be available to take those questions. And he needs to take the tough questions. And let's also not use the term the ball bounce. Unless he's actually just poking fun at it, but let's just let it die, right? Let's throw that in the trash.
I would lean into it and make a joke about it. If somebody asked me, if an opportunity present itself, I would. Now that he said it, I would have never said that after getting me about 30-some point. I mean, but yeah. Well, maybe Brinker's there as kind of the MC, and then maybe if there's a question, just to give it a little break in him answering and feel like he's getting bullets, shot at him all over the place.
That's part of the job, though.
Right. Oh, no, I know. But there you can break it up with, okay, Brinker had something to do with this. So I would let him lead that conversation because that's why I ask you who was actually making decisions. There's a lot of people who talk and they act as though it's not just Rand based off of title. So even though he's over football. So I don't know what the real answer is. So to me, if Brinker and him both come out there, that will then be another statement.
That's what I'm saying.
Who is actually doing what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If that's not the case, is what I'm saying. Like if
it's just one guy.
Ran and he's supposed to be that guy, and what you put out in your press release is supposed to be true, it can only be Ran. Sending out Chad kind of signals what you've been saying is not true. Signals that okay, Chad's really the guy.
No, but you're missing the point. I'm saying that both of them and that they are still, I think that's why they still use the word collaboration. So who are you collaborating if the end all be all is you, Rand? There is no, you talking to them about different players, but ultimately it's your decision.
Yeah.
So who are you collaborating with?
Well, obviously the coaches. I mean, collaboration doesn't mean that someone has power over you.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because that was the big deal with him and Vrabel. Yeah. There wasn't any collaboration going on there.
Well, we definitely know that.
So that's why I bring it up. So then they have continued to use different words, but it still means collaboration. So I'm wondering how much Brinker actually has some clout, because here's why I say
he is over the salary cap management department and the analytics department. Mm-hmm. So those tie into these decisions, but ultimately your decision maker needs to be the question answerer.
Yeah, no, I think he will be. I think Brinker
by himself. I don't want to hear from Brinker.
Right. I think he's going to be there.
Well, if they even do it, that's the big question. If they even do it. When we come back, we'll talk to Coach Mack of Titans Radio for his weekly Mack Attack here on Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. You hear that sound? It's Return of the Mack. Then that means that Coach Mack is here for his weekly Mack Attack here on Cover 2 with Blaine and Zach here, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Stores on 104.5 The Zone. And, of course, you can listen to Mack on every Sunday, game day, Titans Radio. Then, of course, you also have right after 3HL tonight on Tuesday, you have Mack Talk where you can call in and ask questions. And, Coach Mack, I hope everything is good with you. And everything seems to be pretty good after a victory Sunday, I guess I should say, in that Titans locker room. Since his initial presser, Brian Callahan's message has been that when you look at the Titans, he wants the words resilient and relentless to come to mind. And I can't think of two better words to describe the theme of Sunday's game. How big of a deal is that for the head coach to see his vision finally bear some fruit?
Well, I mean, winning ball games is really the ultimate reward when you're in professional sports and in the National Football League. I mean, it's not the money and it's not everything else that surrounds it that comes with it. I mean, the reward for everything that you put into it, for the coaches, for the players, and for everybody concerned, for the fans, is winning the ball game. And so ultimately, that's why we're in the business. All of us that have been in it for a long time. That's why the fans, have great interest in it. And just to see everybody, with a smile on their face after the ball game, and I really enjoy it, being able to stand up and look out the broadcast window that we keep completely open during all broadcasts with Mike Keith. He's always done it so we can be part of the crowd, just to see them walking up those stairs and just extremely happy that the Titans were able to win that football game, and especially a football game at home. It's huge. Is it perfect? Not at all. But it was a win, and a win does a lot of things to be able to at least give you oxygen for the next week, and that's where we're at.
As an NFL team or as a head coach, you can't ensure a win every week. But how do the Titans ensure that mindset, the resilient and relentless mindset, stays at the forefront of minds of their players this week, and they stay consistent with that mindset week to week?
Well, I think the mindset's been there, but you've got to make plays at the time when you have to make plays, and that's what's really important, Zach. Because the games are made up of moments and critical moments in games, and you've got to make those plays at that time to be able to flip it in your favor. And really, football games are a series of those moments that either it's a roller coaster ride, but you want to be able to, once you get to one of those moments that you flip it your way, keep it going that way. That ball game had quite a few ebbs and flows to it, and anytime you're in overtime games, it becomes even more critical to make plays down the stretch. And they made them in this game, and so they won. And again, it's never going to be something that you can't come out of there. You come out of there with a win, but you always come out of there with things to improve on. There's clearly things to improve on with this football team, but just getting that reward, as I said earlier, that is the ultimate goal. That helps. That helps a lot. They've always had the mindset. That's the way you train. That's why you're in it. But you've got to turn it at those moments. That's what they did Sunday at Nissan.
We're talking to Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Well, Coach, naturally, probably the Titans got, one of the worst crews there. I'd love to know what your thoughts were on the officiating there and all the freaking penalties all over the place. I was getting a little perturbed. How about yourself? What did you think about their, refereeing?
Yeah, well, first of all, Blaine, perturbed is a really nice adjective to use about that. I mean, Mike Keith had to calm me down a couple of times, and I mean but to me, I just don't like the inconsistency in the calls. And plus, Mike Keith does a very extensive scouting report every week, and we talk about it. He explains it before the opening of the ball game, what these crews are known for. This is one of the highest called offensive and defensive holding crews in the league, and they lived up to that name really quick. And so, I mean, it makes it hard. First of all, once the game starts, for both sides to understand how they're going to call it, and the inconsistency in calling it is just what bothers me. And I was involved in it, at the deepest level, for over 3 decades as coaching with it. But when you're watching it, and when you're a spectator, basically, it's what I am now is a spectator and being able to comment on it. It's hard to watch when officials are consistently inserting themselves into plays that have a huge impact, and the start-stop mechanism of it, I mean, makes it first of all a little bit infuriating for people to watch, and then when you start making calls that that it would be fine if you didn't insert yourself into the action and just let them play ball. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Blaine, you played for a lot of years, and you know what a problem it is when you're out there and you're trying to get in a rhythm of playing the game, and the officials keep starting and stopping the game with things that you really don't think need to be called.
We're on with Coach Mack, giving us the Mack Attack. Coach, naturally been a former head coach in the National Football League. I just wanted to get your perspective. I know things have changed in the modern era with analytics and everything else, but kind of take us through what you used to do in making decisions, whether you were New England, and if you go for 2 points there at the end to go for the win. Tell me what you would have kind of went through your thought process to make your decision. And then the last, for the Titans there, throwing the ball, I guess, out of bounds right before half. I know, there's not a lot of defensive players out there. Things could happen pretty bad. But is that what, how do you make your decision? What are you thinking during your days as a head coach on those, plays that you have to make?
Well, the case for analytics have always been part of the National Football League, but it's now it's just much deeper and it's much more informed. But the thing about it is, and I'm all for analytics. And analytics really, you want your decisions as you prepare during the week, and then you get into game day on the particular cases. You want it to be analytics informed, but not necessarily just analytics mandated. So you got to get a feel for what's going on in the game at the time. Talk about the play before the halftime. I mean, they were just trying to get out of that half, at that time. Because what happened is they were playing a defense that if you put it up in the air, and you put it up deep, you've got a chance for things to happen. You might be able to come down with it, but would you be able to come down with it because of the time frame? It is an advantage to you, or do you give them a chance to maybe pick it off and take off going back with it? I could totally understand and see that. Mm-hmm. Going for two. I mean, it just that decision always. All of us that have been head coaches, all of us that have been decision makers in the game, that always comes down to the feel that you have for the moment, the feel that you have for how the ball game is going, how much time is left. It also comes down to what the flow of the football game is going at the time. I mean, we saw it not only, in the Titans game. Think about that game that we just watched last night, with the overtime game with Kansas City. And Todd Bowles, I know Todd very, very well. Mm-hmm. And it really came to the point you had fought hard to get back there, and he chose not to go for two at the end of a ball game on the road in inclement weather and just kick it and then turn it over to overtime and basically the coin flip as to who was to get it first. And it ended up, not falling in his favor. Who's to know? But it looked like at the time. I mean, I'm on a constant text chain with people when games are going on saying, what would you do here? I mean, in Todd's case, I would have gone for two at that moment, knowing who I was playing. So to me, the moment, there's not a steadfast rule of when you do, when you don't. You've got to get a feel for the moment and what's going on. But sooner or later, you got to get as much instantaneous information as you can from the person in the box. Everybody has them now that gives you the percentages. But at the end of the day, it's up to the head coach to have a gut feel for it. You make the decision, you live with it.
Well, one last question for me real quick, and that is, how you determine if a starter loses their job if the backup who played in their spot outperformed them. What were your, takes on how you determine what you would do in that decision?
Well, it depends on what the reason was that the starter was out of there in the first place.
Injury.
Injury. Yeah. If he was out of there by injury, then what you do, you want the backup to go in there and perform well. That's what everybody wants. But if it's because of injury, most all of us would put the starter back in the ballgame if he is able and healthy to play. I mean, and that's the nature of being a backup in this league. Now, if the starter is injured for quite a while, and you're not quite sure that he can come back in, and the replacement moving forward, but I've very seldom ever replaced a starter with a backup if the starter was injured and then just had lost his job because of injury when he got back healthy.
Now, the caveat is, does that rule change when you're the quarterback?
Well, I think it depends on where the quarterback is in his development, and it depends on what the injury is. And again, I've made those decisions before. I've been on staff where we've had to make that decision, and very seldom did we ever leave a healthy quarterback on the bench that had been replaced because of injury if he was healthy coming back in.
There you have it, Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Coach, Blaine and I have talked about keeping momentum from these wins, and obviously Titans have had two. The first one came right before an early bye week, and we felt that kind of can almost put a pause on that momentum, kind of kill that momentum. What are your thoughts on that kind of momentum killing when it comes to traveling to the opposite side of the coast? Does that play into it? I mean, that we've seen a lot of teams struggle going from coast to coast. Is that maybe another example of bad timing for this team and with their momentum coming from the win with the Patriots?
Yeah, but you got no control, really. You have no control. Not that kind of. You don't. You have zero control over when your open date is. The other thing is, as far as the travel, I've coached in all the time zones, and I do know this: anytime you are traveling from central or east to west, that's not as big a deal as traveling from west all the way to east, especially if the time change and it's a 3-hour difference where you're losing time. When you're traveling to the West Coast from either the central or the eastern time zone during the time of year, and you're always going to gain time when you go, that's not as big a deal. Now, when you're going the opposite way, when you're traveling from the West Coast time zone to the east, especially all the way across, where at certain times of year it's a 3-hour time difference, then that is when, because if you don't change your travel plans then, and you don't try to get an extra day into it, then you're basically playing a ball game at 9:00 in the morning your time. If you travel for what would be a noon game. So, like the Titans this week, traveling from here to the West Coast, that never bothered me, and it never bothers most teams. Where it does come into effect, though, is if you are going and playing 2 back-to-back West Coast games in a row, rather than to lose that time coming back and then going back again. A lot of teams choose to stay out on the West Coast, but a singular trip going from the central or the east to west, not a problem. Going the other way, that's when you have to start leaving a day early, and that's what I experienced in all of my years of coaching.
That's interesting. I didn't think about the time zone being involved in that, and that makes total sense. The NFL's built around parity, and earlier you were talking about how this win, it wasn't perfect, but a win's a win. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the discourse some media and lots of fans are having after the win, that this win isn't a big deal because it came against a bad Patriots team. Obviously to me, a win is a win, and they showed a lot of good in this win to build on.
Yeah, well, that first of all, you don't get a choice either in who you play or when you play them, and so every game is a single entity unto itself. But yeah, there's winning is something that you never ever take for granted in the National Football League, and you take all kinds of wins. I've been on teams that have been 14-2 and 13-3 and have won close ball games and again, put quotation marks around it. If you're winning against a bad team, it counts. It means as much, just as much. The thing that you, especially since this football team has been struggling to get wins and has had some games in hand that they ended up losing. You cannot ever discount winning a ball game, especially in professional sports, and especially when you only get 17 chances like you do in the National Football League. I mean, that to me is it never enters into anybody's mind. Now, the way you perform and what happens in the ball game, the depth of your criticism and how you have to construct the things you need to work on, that changes as far as to how you play and when you're playing and who you're playing with. But the issue of going into this ball game already a little bit shorthanded, and then during the course of the ball game, losing some pretty significant contributors in the ball game and other people having to step up, all of those factors make winning a ball game like that, you feel even better about it, knowing that you're going to be forced now without those players moving forward. You never discount winning, Zach. You just never can.
What is it about a Harbaugh coach team like the Chargers and his teams finding efficiency and success so quickly while also doing it with a bunch of cast-offs from other teams? I mean, he's got like 7 or 8 former Titans players on this team, and they are playing out of their mind right now, and they've just looked good. But that seems to be his whole thing at every stop as a coach. Like, what is it about Harbaugh that makes him such an effective coach right out of the gate?
Jim, that is.
Well, he's an experienced football coach. I mean, he's extremely experienced. But I mean, they had a pretty good unit left there. They were, and again, I don't like to get into anybody else's of business as far as saying, well, the previous group underachieved and this group is overachieving. He had a lot of people left there, starting with the quarterback. We're talking about about Jim's team now. I mean, Justin Herbert is one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, and they've got guys in there that have been with them for a while, and especially when you look at the defensive side of the ball, that's leading the league in scoring defense, which is massive. That they've only allowed a little over 12.5 points a game, but they've got some guys that have been there for a while, that have performed at a high level, that are really doing a nice job now of keeping this football team, in the ball games. And then you're right. I mean, they've got the Christian Fulton's there, has kind of played up and down, but the guy that is playing really well for him right now, the former Titan, because Tier Tart is there as a backup, but Elijah Molden is the guy that is leading their team right now with 3 interceptions, playing in a backup nickel role. But when he's gotten in there, he's been around the football. So I mean, the nature of the National Football League is guys are going to move around to teams. But Jim Harbaugh, I mean, I've known Jim and the Harbaugh family, for my whole career. I was at the Bears when we drafted Jim, out of Michigan. So I'm very familiar with Jim's career from the start in the National Football League. And he's just a good football coach, and that's extremely, extremely important. And he's got a way of doing things. But what he does do, and he always has done this, is just make sure that if he goes to a place that he has a quarterback that is settled. And once he has that, then the other people that you gather around you, that's all part of the process. And he did the same thing. He did the same thing at Michigan. He did the same thing at Michigan. He did the same thing when he was at the 49ers. So he's got a plan and he's got a method, and he believes in it, and he works it very well.
Well, that was Coach Mack here for his weekly Mack Attack here on Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons. You can also listen to him every Sunday on Titans Radio during the games, and also right here tonight, every Tuesday during the football season, right after 3HL. You can ask him any questions that maybe we didn't hit on today. We always appreciate your time, Coach Mack.
Guys, appreciate both of you. See you.
Appreciate it, Coach.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the college football playoffs, releasing their rankings today. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Did you know Eurofix has a very different business philosophy? They staff all their locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready for when an emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to get a right now appointment for your vehicle repair? Well, some dealers can be more than 2 weeks out just to get a freaking appointment, but not Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without the dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car right now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, then call Eurofix. Owner Aaron Stokes says, we will never be too busy for our customers. We're here to take their pain away, and we mean freaking now. And Eurofix repairs all European cars. And Eurofix says yes to speedy repair when others can't or won't. Family owned for 24 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always on Blaine, Joe.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here for the final segment on this Tuesday. 615-737-1045. You want to get on the conversation. We're powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. And, of course, tonight, the most important vote goes down in our nation's year as the College Football Committee comes together and votes on who is going to be the first 12 of the initial release of the college football playoffs.
And I cannot wait to be so angry.
Okay, so I'm going to read you the top 12. I'm going to read you the top 15 in the college AP football poll, Blaine. So that way we have the top 12 and then maybe three teams on the fringes. Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee is 7th, Indiana, who is undefeated at 8, BYU, who's undefeated, is at 9, Notre Dame, Alabama is currently 11th at 6-2. And then Boise State is 7-1. And then you have SMU, LSU, Texas A&M on the outside looking in. Of course, Alabama plays LSU this week. So big game right there. But Texas A&M has dropped after a loss last week to South Carolina. So do you think this top 12 that I read you is essentially what's going to happen? Or do you think that we're going to see some surprises?
Top 12. So we got Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, UT, Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, Bama. No, not really. No, it may be different order, maybe.
Yeah.
With a couple of them, but no, I don't see any mix up here. I think it's pretty good. You bananas?
I think that some teams will be lower than they are. The AP Bowl is not going to be reflective. I think Indiana will be higher than Tennessee. I think
should they? Do you think? I mean,
it's hard because I think Tennessee is the better resume in terms of wins, especially with the Alabama win and which is how suffocating that defense have been. I mean, they haven't given up more than 19 points in a game, an entire game this season. Indiana, however, has put up the flashy stuff on offense. You know, they put up over 40 on Nebraska. They put up 40 last week against Michigan State. They're undefeated. And I think that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to reward the flashy offense rather than the suffocating defense. And so I think the undefeated plus the offense is going to push Indiana ahead of Tennessee at least in this initial poll.
Yeah. How far up do you think Indiana will be? Like, do you think that maybe you're looking at Oregon is undefeated, Miami's undefeated, Indiana's undefeated? I mean, obviously BYU is too, but I don't think BYU is going to be way up there. But do you think that maybe Indiana cracks in at number 5, or do you think that's still Texas and Penn State at 5 and 6?
I mean, Penn State's the weird team because they also don't have a ton of quality resume wins, and their best chance to get one of those quality wins was last week against Ohio State, which they couldn't, finish the job there. I could see a world where you would put Indiana above, but again, resume. That's all they say about the college football playoff is your resume. You have the wins to push you ahead of another team. I don't know if Indiana has that. I do think that they will be ahead of Tennessee. I do think they will be ahead of BYU. They'll definitely be ahead of Notre Dame and all these other teams. I just don't know if they're going to be able to crack that top 5.
Blaine, we're looking at this list and we're talking about resumes and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, a big game for Alabama and LSU coming up. That's essentially an elimination game. LSU is currently on the outside. Let's say they win at home against Alabama. Does that push them up into the playoff conversation, or because they are currently 14th? So obviously maybe an SMU would have to lose, for them to get pushed up. We'll see what this ranking looks like. But how big of a game, in your opinion, besides just being an elimination game, but LSU's at home. It's at night. And like LSU, if they win, they should duration of that top 12 playoff teams.
Yeah, I would think so. And as well as Bama if they won.
Mm-hmm.
Because what number are they at right now?
They're at 11. They'll probably be, if I were to guess, I would say that Alabama would be number 12.
Okay, so where is LSU as far as record-wise?
They would be then they're 6-2 currently, so then they would be 7-2. They would obviously be eliminated. Either of these teams, I feel like, would be eliminated at this point. But again, this crazy football season has been, you never know what's going to happen down the road. So, but I would venture to say a 3-loss team from the SEC is not going to get in.
Well, I'm going to ask both of you guys. You guys follow this college. All righty. How many SEC teams get in at the end, and how many Big Ten teams get in at the end? See, because you got Oregon, Ohio State. I guarantee you saying they're in. Mm-hmm. So then who are the other 2 or 1 in the Big Ten? See, so you start looking at this whole platform. It looks like the Big Ten is not going to cannibalize themselves, where the SEC may, because the loser of this, LSU, Bama, could also hurt other teams too at the same time, because one of them, Bama, then comes back and beats somebody else. I don't know their schedule. Then all of a sudden, they may be in. So it could be a 2-loss team that may or may not make it to the 12.
I wonder if tonight they're going to, because I know in the college football playoff, it's the Power 5 teams, the top 4 Power 5 teams get a bye week. I wonder if they're going to go ahead and play it that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so if we were going to do it that way, just based on the AP poll, I mean, Oregon, Georgia, and then BYU would be the top 4 teams. And that's if they're playing with the if they're going to go with the conference leaders as the bye week. And I don't know if they're going to do that or not.
That is interesting, because I mean that's automatic, right?
Yes, they'll get
at the end of the year.
It's an automatic bid. Plus, they get the top 4 get the bye in that first round.
That's crazy. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. It's because really we know if this was a 4-team playoffs, I think we'd know who was in. But now that's a 12-team and what the ranking would be in that top 4. Now that it's a 12-team, it is interesting to see how that's going to go down. That's why tonight is going to be so much fun to pay attention to see how this ends up, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Obviously, the trade deadline is near. It's in. 3HL will catch you up on everything that happened during the commercial break, if anything happened at all. They're coming in next. But this has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons. And in the meantime,
and in between time,
peace.